So we're live. Okay, that's cool. All right, guys. What is it tonight? 26th of February. Welcome. It's 7 o'clock. My name is Eric. We're going to do another webinar tonight. Tonight's going to be all about the mind and loss, trauma. How does that work? How do these things pile up in your mind? And what kind of an effect do they have on you? Let me just put the heater off. That is actually quite distracting. You may have heard it, maybe not. So let's see, who do we have here tonight? So we got Dee, we got Suki, we got Jenny, we got Aneta. All right, guys, that's great to have you. We are live on Zoom. I did a little bit of a mistake on my part because I did not send out any reminders. Simply too busy this afternoon. And usually when we send out reminders, a lot of people will come. We don't have a real great attendance here on Zoom tonight, but that's all fine. We'll make it a bit more intimate, I suppose. And then we're also there on Facebook and on Zoom and on Instagram. So my name is Eric. You can hear my voice is actually great at the moment. You recently had a tooth extracted. As you know, it's not too pleasant. Kind of like hit my throat and my nose a bit. So I'm like a lot of like in my voice. I hope you bear with me tonight. Anyway, what I would like to know is why are you here tonight and where are you from? So basically I would like to do a lot of questions for understanding, making sure that we understand each other, making sure that you get the concepts. But just to get a little bit familiarized with each other here in the chat. The chat is wide open. Maybe you want to put there, where are you from and why are you attending this webinar tonight? So myself, you could probably tell by my accent, by my English pronunciation, what have you. I'm actually Dutch. I'm from the Netherlands. I came to Ireland about 3 years ago. I have a background in engineering and in sales. Lived out of my country for more than 20 years. Half of the time was in Latin America and the Caribbean. Another part of that time was actually in Scandinavia and in Belgium. And right now, ultimately, last 3 years, I'm here. All right, so Suki, you are from England. And if I'm not mistaken by your name, could it be so that you have an Indian background? I'm just asking because actually I love the Indian culture. I love Indian ghazals like Lata Mangeshkar, Jagjit Singh. I absolutely love that. I love Indian food. Okay, so there we go. You are from Punjab. From Punjab. All right. I'm gonna let you in on something. I went to Patiala just a few months ago. So, and that happens to be in Punjab, right? Okay, and you're Sikh. Fantastic. I actually had myself a turban wrapped around my head when I went to Patiala, just for the fun of it, right? Good. So we have, let's see, we got Dee here, then we got Jenny. All right, Aneta. And Aneta, you live in Holland. All right. Hoe is jouw Nederlands? Kun je een beetje Nederlands praten? How is your Dutch? Do you speak some Dutch? That is actually zeker. Okay, fantastic. And where do you live? Do you live in the western part or the southern part or the northern or eastern part? Bergen op Zoom. Okay, well, next to Roosendaal, right? Fantastic. Yeah, I know that place very well. Close to the sea. Amazing. All right, guys. So, let me see. We got a few more people waiting who are about to come in. So, let's talk business here, right? We got 1 hour, so we're gonna do a high velocity kind of webinar. So, when we're talking about traumas, when we're talking about loss, we actually mean something stored in the mind that is something unwanted. It gives you unwanted feelings. It gives you unwanted emotions. And it seems that that stuff just doesn't want to go away. It doesn't want to release. It keeps coming back. And we're going to have a look at that tonight. why that is, how that is, and what you can actually do to handle it. Now, that means we're going to talk about the mind. And I have a question for you. Do you think that anybody on this planet really fully knows and understands the mind? What is the mind? How does it work? What do you guys think? You can just put a yes or no in the chat. What do you think? Do you think that there's anybody who really understands what is the mind? How about the I hope the lighting is okay somehow. I feel like I'm a bit in the dark. So Anita says no, Suki says no, Jenny says no, Dee said no. All right, guys, are you okay with the whiteboard? Is that clear enough, or do we need to do something about the lighting? All right, it's clear. Okay, very good. We're going to leave it like this. Good. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to remember primary school. I want you to remember primary school. So for a moment, think of primary school again. And when you think of it, maybe you get some glimpses, maybe you get some flashes, flashbacks, pictures of the classroom. Maybe when I say classroom, you get a flash. Maybe if I would say the building, you get a picture. If I would say the playground, the courtyard, maybe you get a picture. Maybe let's have a look at the fence and the gate. Where's the entrance and where's the exit? And you might get a picture again. And maybe you can remember how you walked through the corridor to the classroom and where you would enter the classroom. Maybe you can even see, like, where would the teacher be sitting? And then from where you were sitting, where was the blackboard? Now, quick question. Who here actually got some pictures? Who saw some pictures of the classroom or the playground or the building itself? Who actually got some flashes, some pictures passing by when we were mentioning these things? Excuse me. All right, past images, flashbacks, fantastic, good. So you got to see something. All right, good. Now, I would assume most of you actually got pictures. So the next thing I want to do, I would just want to take it to the next level, is that what I would like you to do right now is imagine, not remember, but imagine that you're sitting in your favorite chair in the living room in the house where you grew up. So maybe as a child or as a teenager, maybe you've been living in different houses. But what I would like you to do is to imagine you're sitting again in one of these favorite chairs in the living room in the house where you grew up. Now, if you have that, you might be able to see the objects about you. So imagine you're sitting in your chair. What I would like you to do, I would like you to find the TV in that room and just point it out. So from where you're sitting, where would the TV be? Maybe you actually get a picture of that TV. Maybe you can see its size. Maybe you can see its color. Maybe you can see what it is sitting on. Is it sitting on a dresser? Is it sitting on a table? Is it wall mounted? See if you can get a picture. And if you can, let's find a table. So from where you're sitting, find the nearest table and just point it out. Where would the table be? And you might get a glimpse of the size of the table, the shape of the table, the color of the table. Okay? Now let's find a window. From where you're sitting, where would a window be? Any window. If I would be imagining that I would be sitting in my chair again, where I would used to sit as a child, I had a humongous window over there in front of me, and I had another one over there. And And I could see that the one in front of me was probably like 4 meters by 2 meters. It was huge, and it had brown curtains, light brown curtains. And I can actually see that texture again. So maybe if you look at the window, maybe you can see if it had blinds, maybe there were plants in the window, maybe it had curtains in front of the window, maybe you can see its texture, the color. And finally, let's see if we can find a door in that room. Where would the door be? So from where you're sitting, just point it out. Where would it be? Just point it out. And what is the color of that door? Is it a white door? Is it a black door? Is it a brown door? What is the color? Okay. So, now, once again, who was able to do this? And by able to do this, I mean, who was able to point out these objects in the living room? Maybe some of you actually got to see pictures. If you didn't get to see pictures, like you didn't get a picture of the TV or the table or the window or the door, but you still knew where these things were located. So who was able to do that? All right, Dimitri, yes, but prefer English. Okay, good. I got you on that one. D says, can remember most items. Okay, that's cool. Okay, good. Anita says, I could remember. That's great. All right, so what do we learn from this? What do we learn from this? Basically, it's the following. Let's say, let me see if that color is any good. That's a little bit better, I think. So let's say this is your body. And your mind actually makes pictures. I'm just reminding something. Pavel, would you do me a favor? Could you get me the book for tonight? Actually, totally forgot to bring it over. It was on the phone with my wife. All right, so your mind actually makes pictures. So we call these pictures mental. We call these pictures mental images. So what is so special about this? If you were looking at primary school, if you're looking at the room in your house, the living room, you actually got to see pictures. These kind of pictures in your mind. Now these pictures, you can perceive them, you can experience them, but they're not tangible. You cannot touch these pictures. So these pictures, they have a different quality than, for example, a physical object. Like this is a physical object, right? And it's got weight, it's got mass, right? It is susceptible to the gravity of Earth, meaning it has energy, it's got kinetic energy, right? The Earth will actually pull it down. Now, as you can see, that thing here, it exists in space, and it consumes its own space, and it also exists in time, right? It exists right now. I can put it down, and it will still exist if I pick it up again, right? So this is composed of matter, energy, space, and time. Matter, energy, space, and time. Now, your mental image pictures, they happen to be different. They don't abide to the laws of physics. So, and it's a funny thing. You can actually look at that picture, and you can see that TV again, or you could see that table again, or you could see the window again, or you could see the door again, or you could see the classroom again, and it's almost as if it's really there, almost tangible. But it isn't. It is something mental. It is a carbon copy almost You could say it's a perfect copy of your experience, what you have experienced before. So, for that reason, we call these pictures mental pictures, mental images. And that is what your mind does. Your mind makes these pictures all the time. Now, a very, very key principle here to understand is that you can only be made aware of these pictures when you put your attention on them. Because they're mental. Because unlike these things, they're not directly visible to the eye, right? They don't really exist unless you put your attention on them, and then they come into being. Now, how do you use these pictures? Well, let's say I'm coming home with my keys, and I drop the keys somewhere on a dresser, and I make a recording of that in my mind. Now, I might go to the living room, and I might spend some time resting in my bedroom, and all of a sudden I realize, oh gosh, I actually should be doing some shopping now before the shops close. So you're getting all dressed up, you want to go out, you put your hands in your pocket, and you say, gosh, what did I do with my keys? Now you find out your keys are not in your pocket. So what are you going to do? Well, in most cases, you're just going to contemplate for a moment and then ask yourself this question: what did I do? Where did I pass by when I arrived home? And you're going to get that picture again where you stored or where you put down your keys. So your mind will now tell you where you're going to find your keys. That is your mind, ladies and gentlemen. That's very simple to understand, isn't it? Now, if you're not getting any clear pictures, don't worry, because there's still content in there. And maybe you cannot see the content, but there's still knowingness in that content. In other words, you know that the TV was over there. You know that the table was over there. You know that the window was over there. You might not get a picture, but the knowingness, whatever you know, has been recorded, and it's recorded in these pictures. All right? Now, I have a question for you guys. So we just looked at primary school, and we looked at the living room where we grew up. Now, did anybody of you have any unwanted or unpleasant feeling or emotion when looking back at these moments in your life? So that's a question. Please answer in the chat. When you did go back to primary school, when you did go back to the living room, was there any kind of emotion or sensation or feeling that came to you? Some kind of like an unwanted feeling or an unwanted emotion that actually came up? Was there anything that felt unpleasant? So did it trigger any unpleasant feeling when you looked back at school, or when you looked back at the living room? Did any unpleasant feeling occur? All right, so we're getting a lot of yeses there, right? In other words, there is something charged there is something there recorded in these moments, right? And so when you look at the living room, you might actually see all the objects, but you could actually go back to a very, very specific time when you felt happy in that room, and you can feel the happiness again. In other words, the happiness, the emotion is stored in the picture. Likewise, you can also go back to a moment of sadness in the same room and pick up that sadness again, and you can actually now get a unpleasant emotion because you're connecting up to a past sadness. Now, the next thing here, I just want to be a little bit careful here because I don't want to trigger anything dramatic. Consider this a little bit to be a lesson, a webinar, sharing information with you guys. So here's the next question. Let me see. Let me have a look at my notes. Now, what would happen? What would happen in the past? So I don't want you to have a look right now. But what would happen in the past if you, for some reason, thought back of a moment of loss or pain or traumatic experience? What would happen in the past? So I don't want you to look right now, but you can probably tell from what happened in the past to you, what did happen when you thought back, perhaps inadvertently, of a loss, of a moment of serious loss in your life. Would you get that emotion again? Or if you would think back of a moment of pain, would you get that pain back again? So, what would happen if you would think back of anything having to do with a loss or having to do with a pain? Would a similar emotion or feeling come back to you? That is the question. And I see that Eli is also there tonight. That is fantastic. Good to have you again. And it was nice to receive your meetup communication, Eli. That was good. And nice to be back. Yes, fantastic. All right. So we know from experience, right, that whenever we think back of something from the past that was painful to us, that we kind of like re-experience that feeling and that emotion. I used to have tremendous problems myself because as a kid, I was often very, very sick for prolonged times. And I would used to, my mom would take me to the hospital for blood tests, right? And I could already feel the needle, the syringe going into my elbow. I could just create that whole experience again in my mind, and I would feel it in my elbow at home, getting the exact sensation again of being pricked, right, with a needle. Maybe you've experienced something like this yourself. Yeah. In other words, what we're trying to explain here is that these things have been stored. They've been recorded and they've been stored in your mind. Now, here's a quick question. Let's say you're thinking back of something painful. You're thinking back of something traumatic or a loss, right? And now you get that feeling, now you get that emotion again. Here's the question. Can you easily shake off that feeling and that emotion and just push it aside and pretend that nothing is happening to you and you just continue with your life? Can you easily shake it off? Can you do that? Okay, so the answer seems to be no, right? So here's a problem. Here's a problem that we have, right? Whenever something gets triggered in our mind, we get triggered in some way, right? There's now something there that controls us in a bad way, and we cannot fend it off or shake it off. In other words, that stuff that is in there is now controlling us. and it operates in a certain fashion. And it's very, very easy to understand. So basically, I'm going to give you an example. Just going to give you an example. I'm going to take a very, very common one. Most people have probably experienced this. Let's go back to a time when you had to give a speech in front of a group of people. All right? Or when you saw somebody else giving a speech to a group of people. And most people have observed this. You were there in front of these people, and all of a sudden, something took over the control of your body to some extent. All of a sudden, you were facing these group of people, and your legs got kind of weak. They felt like spaghetti all of a sudden, like they had no strength, right? And maybe you had a paper to read from, and you wanted to keep it still, but you couldn't. You couldn't keep your arm still, and you couldn't keep the paper still. It seemed like that was simply impossible. Now, at the same time, you might have noticed that your armpits started to smell and produce sweat. You started to transpire and smell, as in fear. Smell of fear. Or maybe at the same time you got a dry throat. And you felt like you were very thirsty and you had to just drink and drink and drink. No matter how much you drank, you kept on having a dry throat. In other words, something was completely taking over the control of your body. In other words, some kind of a sabotage. Right? Like a self-sabotage. But you couldn't do anything about it. You couldn't shake it. It was just simply controlling you. Now, it didn't just stop there. It didn't just only control your body. It also controlled your mind. It seemed to block your memories. You were going to talk about these and these and these subjects, and just like an exam, all of a sudden you're there, and it seems like you cannot access to whatever it was that you learned, perhaps by rote even. All of a sudden you cannot access it. It seems like your mind is blocked. Now, so it controls your body, it controls your mind. Now, it even controls your purposes. So how would that work? Well, you've probably seen this idea that you wanted to have a chat with your boss. You might have this idea like you wanted to take a day off, you wanted to go on holidays, or you wanted to change the schedule, or you wanted to change the salary, or whatever. And you decided you had to talk to him. And you got out of your chair, and you wanted to walk over to your boss, and all of a sudden you had that knot in your stomach. That anxiety feeling. This anxiety feeling all of a sudden started to control you, and you had this idea, maybe the boss would not really like to see you, might actually dismiss you or something. And you said, well, I'll do that tomorrow, I'll do that another time. And you went back to your position. In other words, you had a certain purpose there, and you didn't follow through. So all these things basically got sabotaged. All right, now, just a quick question. Have you observed this for yourself? That your nerves, for example, took over completely. You were no longer really in control of your body. You kind of like forgot certain things that you wanted to mention or talk about. Instead, you did do something different. Have you observed these things in yourself or perhaps in others? All right, Anita says yes, of course. All right. Allow me to wipe the board. Please type if you wanna put something in there. Good. Thank you very much, Anita. Neela as well. All right. So you have seen that, yeah. I'm going to give you a very, very simple example of this kind of sabotage, right? And I'm going to give you a simple example. Let's see. It should be a bit dry. So we're going to take Bill. We're going to take Bill and Mary. Bill and Mary are very much in love with each other. I'm going to take 8 o'clock in the morning. So that's 8 a.m. Bill and Mary, they're having a serious altercation about something. They clash with one another. And Bill gets very upset with her. And now he starts to lash out at her. And he becomes hostile. He says, I don't want to hear another word of you today. So now Mary has to go to work. There's Mary, and she's in front of her computer screen. And let's say this is 10 a.m. in the morning. Now, what I would like to ask you is, what do you think? Where is Mary's attention? Is her attention at work? Or is her attention at what happened earlier in the morning? Or could it be a mix of both? Would her attention be on what happened 2 hours earlier? Or would her attention be at work? What do you guys think? Okay, good. So we have both. All right. In most instances, we have both. Very good, guys. Now, you might consider that having her attention over there is kind of unwanted, right? It is kind of unwanted because there is something, there's a very, very unpleasant emotion connected to that, potentially. Because there's a bit of a broken heart kind of situation there, and it's like an impending loss. So, in other words, it could become something really painful. It could become something that, well, Bill and Mary are going to be separated. And he would be her ally. He would actually take care of her with food and with shelter and with company and with love and with care. Anything you can wish for, right? So what is really happening here is that Mary has got pictures. So her attention is still stuck on something that happened earlier that day. There was a potential loss. Okay, now maybe, just maybe, she makes this whole thing way bigger than she needs to. Let's say she never really had any quarrel with Bill. And they never have any upsets with one another. Now all of a sudden they have an upset. And maybe she's just inflating the whole thing. And kind of like making a mountain out of a molehill, perhaps. Now, why do you think that incident would weigh so much on her? Why do you think that could happen? That an altercation, an exchange of words, some unfriendliness, might actually get a person kind of fixated in the moment. How could it be that a person gets so fixated on that and perhaps so worried about it and can't really focus her attention at work? How could that be? Now, I'm just gonna wait for a second because maybe anybody's got an idea here how that could be, why that could be. Maybe sometimes you've seen this with people where you see like, hey, you know, they're making a mountain out of a molehill. The incident really doesn't justify to inflate it this much and to make that much of a big deal out of it. So how come people do that? How come it has such a tremendous effect on them? How could that happen? All right, so Suki says, it causes her pain and anguish and can't be shaken off. That is very, very, very true. However, you see at the same time that this is very subjective, right? Because the pain and anguish is not here in present time. It's very subjective. It's something that has happened in the recent past. There's nothing there that is putting her in pain. Okay, and D, you have it actually spot on. It reminds her of a previous trauma. Exactly. So the mind operates in similarities. And it's and it basically almost works like an archive, like a library. So in a library, for example, you might find the same authors on the same shelf, or you might find related subjects together. And our mind is doing the same thing. No wonder we then see the same thing happening in the library, because in our minds we structure things, and the result of that we actually see in the library. So now, to make a whole thing short, there is other incidents stored in the mind that have some kind of a similarity. And there might be a previous one right there that has a lot of pain or loss or emotional pain in it. And remember, these are mental images. We don't see them unless our attention is actually directed to them. But then, just like the exam, when we try to put our attention to it, it might be sealed off and blocked. It's there, but it might be sealed off and blocked. We're going to get into that, how that actually works. But to give you an idea, let's say a person has a recurring headache, a migraine, right? So your mind will store all these moments of migraine on a chain. And actually, when a person's got a migraine here, it might actually trigger all these previous moments all together, making this migraine becoming way bigger than it is in reality, because other things get actually reactivated and now start to snowball. So let's see how that works. I'm going to wipe out the board. Are you guys tracking so far? Does it make some sense what we're putting on the board for you tonight? Are you guys tracking? Yes, okay, makes sense. All right, beautiful. Thank you. That's always good to hear. Good, so let's do this example. Let me see. I hope you can see that. Maybe not. I'm always in doubt when I see whatever I see here on my own screen. I'm not sure if it is clear enough. Okay, let's say we got little Johnny here. And Johnny is attacked by a dog. Now, it happens to be a very, very painful incident. And Johnny's losing a lot of blood. And Johnny is actually terrified. And it might even be that Johnny is actually passing out. So all that stuff now is all recorded in Johnny's mind. So let's say that incident here, maybe 20 years ago, is stored there somewhere in Johnny's mind, in Johnny's pictures. Now we're in present time, and Johnny is walking down the road. He's going in that direction, and all of a sudden, he spots a dog over here. And that dog happens to be very similar to the dog in the traumatic incident 20 years earlier. So what is Johnny's mind now going to do? What is Johnny's mind now going to do? That is my question to you guys. Let's see if we understand what is going to happen. Okay, so Anita says a flashback. All right. Okay, D says it will trigger those emotions. Eli says sweat, fear, panic. Okay, all right. So we see what happens, right? We see what happens. So here is we have a physical content here, right? The physical content is pain. Another physical content is blood, losing blood. And as a result of losing blood, we may have another physical content here which is passing out. And then we have an emotional content which is terrified. And this is all combined in a force. That force is now going to be reactivated and is going to make Johnny feel exactly the same again. He may have the sensation that he's losing blood, and he might almost feel numb or shaky or reeling or dizzy as if he's going to pass out. He might feel terrified. So the ingredients here, the factors here, the manifestations, as they were recorded in that incident, are actually going to be enforced on Johnny to behave in the same way again. Now, here is where the mind makes the ultimate mistake. Because why? It identifies one thing that is not the same as the other thing with the other thing. In other words, it's identifying this dog with this dog. It is identifying this moment in time with that moment in time. It is identifying this location with that location. And that is an identification, and is actually insanity. Why would it be insanity? Because this dog might be a very pettable dog. It might be the sweetest dog on earth. But the mind will dictate Johnny to be in fear of the dog, to be terrified of it. And he might actually get the feeling that he's going to pass out. Now, it might be, it doesn't have to be. This is something that can potentially occur. Now you might say, okay, Erik, well, that's all fine. It's a nice story. There's some sense to it, but you know what? I don't really have anything with dogs. Dogs, they don't scare me. Okay. That is all right. Let's replace the dog. Let's replace it for a. Let's replace it for a hospital. Right? Now, do you feel super comfortable walking into a hospital? Or does something get triggered? And do you feel like I'd rather leave this place? Well, let's change it for a dentist practice. Do you feel completely at ease at a dentist practice? Or do you say, well, not so much? We could also replace this for a person. Do you feel 100% at ease in front of your boss? Or do you feel somewhat nervous? Well, let's replace this for a group of people. Do you feel completely at ease in front of an audience? Or do you feel shaky? Something is controlling you, because that is essentially that mechanism. So basically what we want to say is that moments from the past can still affect you right now, and your entire future, because there's a mechanism there that kind of like enforces this self-sabotage every time it gets triggered. Now, I would like to hear from you if there's anything specific, like, for example, is there any specific kind of situation or a specific person or a specific location that makes you feel very, very uncomfortable? Is there any specific situation or any specific person or any specific location that makes you very, very uncomfortable? Do you have something like that? Okay, we do have that, right? And actually, it follows the same principle. Now, we looked at these pictures again, and they have no mass, they have no weight. You cannot touch them. We can only experience them if you can actually put your attention onto them and actually get to see what these pictures are all about. Okay, Suki being challenged, spoken to, rudely, unprovoked, work situations where I'm not being respected. Okay, got you. Thank you very much for that answer. That's amazing. So, here's the principle, yeah? Now, it could just be that you just pick up some kind of a perception. You hear some music, and the music triggers you, and you go into grief. Or you see something, you don't know what it reminds you of, but you go into this agony and pain and perhaps grief again. And maybe there's all kinds of things that can trigger your emotions. And then all of a sudden you have that unwanted feeling, that unwanted emotion. You can't shake it off. It overwhelms you. It takes control over you. You cannot shake it off. And now it's controlling you. And what is it? Well, it follows the same principle. There is simply something there that you haven't seen yet, and it has a control force over you. It controls your emotions and it controls your feelings. So we got 5 minutes. Maybe we need another 5 minutes to wrap it up. But how do we solve this issue? How do we solve this? And it's actually simple. It's actually simple. I'm going to go back to the very rudimentary type of explanation between Bill and Mary. just a quick question for you, Pavel. Do you have the poll for the end? Do you have it? All right, good. That was just a quick question for my colleague. So we had Bill. Then we had Mary. And then we had a broken heart situation there in the morning. And here we have Mary at 10 p.m., at 10 a.m. trying to work. But of course, she still had her attention on that whole broken heart kind of situation. So now, that's giving her a lot of stress. So she decides to go home in the evening and talk to Bill. And basically, she wants to talk about the whole thing that happened earlier over there. She's kind of worried with the whole situation here. Let's say this is 7 p.m. Now she has a talk with Bill. Bill straight up apologizes. He had no clue what came into him, why he reacted that way, why he lashed out. It was just a big mystery to him. He was so sorry. He had no clue what overcame him. And the whole thing to him was just based on a complete misunderstanding. And he is kind of like upset with himself. And Mary completely understands him and actually understands the whole situation here right now. Now, what is going to happen if they have this kind of a talk? What's going to happen if they have that kind of a talk? Will that situation remedy, and will she be able to get rid of that stressful feelings? What do you think? If they would just talk it over and come to a mutual understanding, would she still have that stressful feelings, or would these stressful feelings vanish? All right, D, so you say no? Okay. Right, Suki said it would reduce. All right. So it would reduce, yeah? But it wouldn't be gone, right, Suki? Maybe they will vanish for some time, okay? Yep. So what is going on here is that Mary, she's got all kinds of recordings. Now, they might make up the recent one, and it might completely vanish, and all that love and affinity and communication might actually return. However, this situation could have triggered an older trauma or loss that she didn't see because she could only see this one. She had all her attention on that one. What she didn't see was that an older one actually got triggered. It got triggered and it got reactivated. Now, it might be that right now They're having that conversation, and this one has gotten cleaned up. She might feel some relief. Nevertheless, in the back of her mind, something is still lingering. But what if this happens again? But what would happen next time? Is he going to leave me? And all kinds of other stuff. Because there was something else that got triggered. And this is what gives an individual a backpack, which is a sum of bad experiences that he carries on with him in his life. And because of that, he actually starts to have irrational judgment, just like Joe with the dog. Now we start doing things that later on we need to apologize for. Now we start to have feelings that we don't want. And this is going to affect our work. And this is going to affect our relationships. And this is going to affect our competence. And ultimately, believe it or not, it's going to affect your wallet. Because that stuff in there is going to drag you down because it's something negative. Now, have you ever heard that we only use 10% of our potential? Have you ever heard that? Okay. This actually happens to be a quote by Albert Einstein. It's one of his famous quotes where he says, we only use about 10% of our potential. And that is because we have all these things there which are unseen, which are part of our back package, that give us fears to communicate, fears to reach out to people, fears to pick up the phone and call somebody, a fear to speak in public, a fear to go to a job interview. It is something there that's limiting your potential, that's holding you back from being what you want to be, from doing what you want to do, from having what you want to have. The old traumas and losses and painful experience in your life are actually holding you back and limiting your potential. So, okay, now that we know this, we may ask ourselves, is there actually a solution? And there is a solution. There is a solution where you can actually clean up that baggage that is no good because it just controls you. It makes you numb. It makes you change your purpose. It makes you change your mind. There's just something there that causes this irrationality. And when you get rid of it, you are a clear individual with an IQ of 140 and above. And that is an individual who has actually reached his full potential. Now we're going to do a little poll here, if you don't mind. And at the bottom of the poll, you can actually find the book. So what I would like you to do is, the poll is going to come up. Did you put it already, Pavel? Yeah. So Pavel, my colleague, actually put a poll in the chat for you. Do us a favor, please. Answer the poll quickly, and then I'm going to finally tell you the quick solution to reach clear, to get rid of that baggage, to clean out all that stuff that's holding you back and limiting your potential. All right. Yes. Okay. Good. So you've not really helped solve anything, just explained the problems, how you can heal something you don't know anything about. What's the description and hasn't been answered. Yes, Jenny, I know. That's perhaps my mistake because we had just had an hour. The main thing I wanted to do tonight is to give you a conceptual understanding why these things happen. And I'm going to give you the solution right away. And the solution is actually very simple. What was discovered was that in your mind you have various moments stored, recorded of pain and loss and traumatic experiences. But there's one at the basis of it. And that one at the basis is actually holding all the other ones in check, in sync, and one after another can actually be reactivated. And every time it creates the making the mountain out of a molehill type of situation. Yeah, aggravating anything that is happening. And it was found that once you actually tackle this one and you clean it up, you as an individual can actually go clear and eliminate your entire baggage. Now, that in a nutshell is the solution. How do you do that? The answer is actually in this book. It is an international bestseller. You find it in the Paul at the bottom. It's called Dianetics, meaning through the mind. It is the only book on the planet, believe it or not, it's the only book on the planet that actually knows the mind. It tells you the full anatomy of the mind. How does the mind work? Why do these incidents keep coming back in your life? Why do things keep on repeating against your own will? What is it that causes you stress and anxiety, and self-doubt, and nightmares, and all these unwanted feelings and emotions? It tells you in the first 200 pages, it tells you how does the mind work. And so I give you snippets of that tonight. Then in the next part of the book, it tells you the therapy, the method to clean out that baggage and reach a state where you have a higher IQ, a much higher level of self-confidence and ability. The last part of the book is actually a glossary helping you to find all the hard to find words so you don't have to consult a dictionary. And that, ladies and gentlemen, that is the solution. Now, it's very, very popular with directors, with CEOs of big companies. Successful people use this because this really works. Okay? Unfortunately, of course, I cannot squeeze everything in 1 hour, but I hope you liked the content of what is the mind. Next time you can step up to a psychologist and say, okay, you know what? Tell me, how does the mind work? You might actually find that you actually know it a little bit better right now. Now, I don't want to hold you up any longer than this right now. It's 10 minutes past 8. Any final question, guys, before we end off? Thank you, Dee, for your comment. Thank you. I enjoyed this. Me too. Had some throat issues and had to cough and suppress it a little bit, but we made it through the hour. It's good. I don't see any questions popping up right now. So, guys, thank you so much for attending tonight, for being here. It was highly enjoyable. Thank you very much for your feedback and for your participation. I hope you enjoyed it. Next week, we're back with another topic. I think it's about self-love or something on Tuesday, 8 p.m. So I hope to see you then. And for now, have a great rest of your evening. Bye for now.